Hello and welcome to Hot Lunch, a new Irish show reviewing cameras and camera equipment from the point of view of video makers and producers, from videographers to editors. Today we have a much demanded device on the show. This is a new piece of equipment called the Atem Mini Pro from Blackmagic Design, makers of our beloved Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K and 6K cameras. Before I start, let me say thanks to Camerakit, our channel sponsor, who supplied the Atem Mini Pro for the review, and indeed most of the camera gear for all of our reviews. They can order this device in for you if you choose to order it. They also have the device available right now to rent, so you can get that from them as needed. This is a device that lets you stream from multiple cameras or other video sources, either to the internet or to record locally. And it is the big brother to the Atem Mini, which has been on the market for a few years, and the little brother to a whole variety of Atem studio devices used in television production produced by Blackmagic, which go up to many thousands of euro and are designed and used to stream live sports games and live events and to manage TV studios all around the world. So this is something completely new to both Paul and myself. While I did train on much larger versions of this kind of technology during my master's a few years ago, using a device like this, a dedicated device with a laptop, isn't really something that either of us have done before at this scale. And using it to stream is something that we're completely unfamiliar with. I've done a little bit of VJ streaming in the past using OBS, the free software solution, but I've never used a hardware device, so it was quite new coming to this, and we had a lot to learn. So we're going to talk you through what we did and the many benefits of this device, and a few niggles as well that might limit where and why you might want to use it. So this is a device that comes from the television world, and it has all of the legacies of that. It works very much like all of the other Atem devices in Blackmagic's line. So at heart, the Atem Mini Pro is a very simple device. It takes in up to 4 HDMI signals and puts out either over HDMI or directly via USB-C to a hard drive, or over Ethernet it can stream online. So you have 3 different ways of getting video out of the device and 4 different devices it supports. And what it essentially is a live mixer. Same way that an audio mixer works for sound, moving between different channels that you have plugged into a desk. This moves between video. So you might have seen shots of TV studios in the movies where people are cutting to camera 1, cutting to camera 2. This is effectively the same thing. And that is a deceptively simple task. In fact, devices that do that have to have a lot of processing on board, because latency is very important for video, how quickly it responds to your touch and how rapidly the video input comes from the camera, especially when you're syncing multiple cameras. And the device is also encoding video, especially when you're recording directly onto a hard drive. So you can do that. You can use this to mix video and record directly onto a hard drive without any kind of laptop at all. And that makes it kind of unique for this kind of device. You can also run it remotely. So you can have it set up in a TV studio-like environment, have your talent come in and then do all your mixing using the software over the internet. And you can even have multiple people using the device online. So one person is doing the coloring, one person is doing the mixing, and another person is preparing graphics. And graphics support is something else that this device excels in. You can have screenshots pulled from your stream going into your media, or you can have overlays, station idents or pop-up graphics that either sweep through or gradually fade in or rest over your image the whole way through your broadcast. So you can get that kind of full video studio feel. The device also lets you do picture-in-picture, so you can have a smaller window of a second camera in any of the corners of your window, and you can actually change the size of that video window if you go deep into the options and the configuration in the software. So as I say, Paul and I are not regular streamers. We don't stream video games, we don't stream live events. So this was very new to us. And we are here in a room in Paul's studio that doesn't have landline internet. So our experiment was to set up a small gig using Ken O'Neill, one of Paul's friends, a local musician who was kind enough to perform some of his songs, which we live streamed to YouTube. So what we did was we set up a hotspot on a phone, we connected that via Wi-Fi with the laptop, and we had the Atem Mini Pro connected via USB. What that prevented us from doing is recording locally from the USB on the Atem Pro. So the footage you're seeing is actually pulled straight off of YouTube. YouTube saves a video stream as you're doing it. What I would recommend, and what I'm sure most people will do, if you do have internet and you're not just limited to a phone, is to have the Atem running straight via Ethernet into your router, have your laptop or desktop PC on the same network, in other words connected to the same router. That will let you record locally, so you save up that USB slot to record locally on the Atem. You get your local high quality, not buffered, no internet problems stream saved, and you can do your live stream and have that recorded. So you'll have a backup, or you don't even need to live stream, you can just do your recording here and you'll still be able to fully control via software on the laptop over Ethernet. As I say, we couldn't do that with just the phone. We had to use that precious USB 2 port just to run into the laptop. That said, one of the things that we came across, which I thought was fantastic, was the laptop that we were using is really under spec'd for this device. So if you look at the specifications on the Blackmagic site, it will let you basically tell you that the Atem requires a recent version of Mac OS, relatively recent processors and so on. My laptop, you can see it, is a 2013 MacBook Air. So it was a pretty good MacBook Air when it came out, but that is an ancient computer and it's running Sierra, not even High Sierra. So it's several versions of Mac OS out of date. And yet we were still able to do video streaming with this device. And the reason we could is because the Atem encodes its video output. So it's not just taking these 4 HDMI streams and giving you another HDMI out, although it does that too, but it's actually compressing that down, the H.264 video, and telling the laptop that it's a USB camera. So literally any laptop that can take a USB camera, which is really any laptop from recent years at all, can serve as a streaming platform with this device. So that takes away a lot of the expense potentially of streaming. A lot of streamers that you'd see on YouTube have very, very powerful gaming rigs. They might even have a second computer just to run their stream through, and you really don't need that with this device, and that's a huge, huge cost-saving benefit for something that can take in 4 video streams. So the Atem supports streaming, as I mentioned, directly from the device, and there are settings built in for Facebook, Zoom, YouTube and Twitch. And if you're very technical, you can actually go into the XML settings and configure those to stream to any other platform. But straight out of the device, you have support for that, which you can do by entering the code that those streaming platforms give you into the software on the device. So is this the perfect device for streaming in our post-COVID-19 world? Let's get into some of the pros and cons of the device. As I mentioned, it is at heart a very simple device, and what it does well. It mixes or muxes 4 different cameras. You get wipes and dissolves between them as you like. You can have from one corner to another, straight across. You can have a graphic wipe. So all of those traditional TV functions are there, and it works excellently well with the other devices in the Blackmagic TV studio lineup. So there's a whole family of devices if you want to gradually build to a more sophisticated setup, which will let you save locally or have much better knobs and switches to affect the various fades and transitions. That is its strong selling point. It's a really moderately priced entry into that world of building a professional studio. On the other hand, because it does come from TV studio land, there are issues in terms of how it handles streaming that I'll discuss later, which might not make it the preferred device if all you want to do is stream a single camera. So one of the great benefits of this being a Blackmagic device is that on the software side, you have a sort of mini version of Resolve and a mini version of Fairlight, Blackmagic's audio solution, built in. So you have the ability to change colors on the fly, to affect brightness, and even control things like aperture on the camera if you're using a native Micro Four Thirds lens. You also can affect compression, turn up or down channels on each individual camera, and the device has 2 dedicated line-in ports that you can set via software to be line or mic level. So whether you're getting a very hot output from a very loud device or just a quiet output like a lav mic, you can run straight in and fully adjust that on the device as well. So which is also kind of an undersold feature. I think I haven't seen people talk about that, because a lot of people reviewing this device are reviewing it as part of a very complex and advanced setup. But if you're just using this on a laptop, having something where you don't need a lav recorder and you can run straight into the device while your cameras are far away, you know, that's a huge thing. You can get a cheap lav or lapel mic online, which sounds relatively good, from the likes of Rode or Giant Squid, and you can be running that straight in. That can be your audio solution. The device's capabilities go way beyond anything that we use it for. So one of the functions that people might find it most useful for is any kind of remote studio environment. And this is going to become increasingly common, not only because of COVID, but due to cost savings in the TV industry. And actually, ironically, I know that when TV3 in Ireland started off many years ago, their TV studio consisted of effectively 2 or 3 remote run cameras, which talent would walk in front of to do news, weather and reportage, which were run kind of through a similar system, obviously at a much greater cost and complexity back then. So in years to come, you might see a lot more multicam studio setups run in remote locations by a person who's not even present. And this is the kind of device that will let you do that. Once it's all set up and plugged in and turned on, you can fully move between cameras, do your fades and wipes and everything over the internet with this device. So and that's a really interesting set of functionality for a very specific use case. As I mentioned, the Atem supports picture-in-picture, something that's very useful for, say, game streamers or people doing commentary videos. You have your little talking head in the corner as pioneered by Japanese television in the 1980s, and to give your reactions or to give your commentary while your main picture can be taken up, let's say, with video game footage or any other video source you want to run in. Something that we didn't use this for, but it could be incredibly useful for, is live conference environments. So oftentimes at these kind of conferences, you want to have maybe multiple laptops set up to go in. Let's say the attendees are bringing their presentations on their own laptops. They're all set up to go. And anyone who's run a live event like that will know it's an absolute nightmare at times to get PowerPoints or keynote presentations from people's laptops. Laptops won't register a key. Maybe there's security issues with the network where you can't plug in USB keys. This can actually get rid of the need for a lot of that. If you can get a HDMI out, whether it be from a DVD player, Blu-ray player, laptop, or any other device really at all, you can run it into this. So for example, you could have 4 different attendees, all of whose laptops are all set up, all ready to be switched, bang, bang, bang. Or you can have a video source ready to stream a video that you know needs to be perfect and go out on time and can't glitch, and you've got a way to run that video, any kind of video output device or say software on a laptop, and you also then want to jump to a keynote or a PowerPoint presentation or something else on the 2nd or 3rd or 4th video. So that kind of live video switching and mixing to a large screen at a venue, or for a video stream from a conference, and again, that's going to become much more popular with COVID. So many conferences have gone online only, that this ability to switch between video sources, or even have a whole second studio set up somewhere else, which is feeding you out a video source, and you can go bam, studio 2. Like, this is probably the cheapest way that I know of to do something like that. It's an incredibly useful feature set for that universe. So now to get on to some of the cons of the device. This is HD only, and that is both input and output. So if you're getting a 4K HDMI feed out of your camera, you're going to need to switch that down to a 1080 feed. And as I mentioned, output wise as well, the files it streams and the files it records locally are 1080 only. Now it will intermix all of the kinds of HD, whether it be 720i, 1080p, 1080-30, 1080-60, and mix them all to a single feed seamlessly, which is fantastic. But if 4K is important to you, you might need something like the Elgato Camlink, which does a single HDMI 4K stream, or another more expensive and sophisticated device from Blackmagic's lineup. So I mentioned that the device has support for images. You can have an image on screen as still, you can have an image in the corner, you can use an image as a wipe. And you set those up on your laptop through the software to be run. There isn't any kind of memory for them in the device, so you can't locally save a series of stills and have them ready to go in the device without a laptop, or without them being in the library on the laptop. And you also can't stream video through the device other than through the HDMIs. So what I mean by that is you can't have the equivalent of, let's say, VLC set up on your laptop and run a video over the Ethernet, which will join in with the stream. There's no capability for that. And that is a shame. Having local image storage, or even with the laptop having video clip storage, would greatly increase the utility of the device in terms of running adverts and pre-rolls for, say, YouTubers. So if you need that functionality, that is something you might want to look to another device for. Something else that occurred to us during the shoot is that, so we wanted to give the musician Ken the best video that he could get at the end of this, as well as being a test for us. So what we did was we recorded locally on all the cameras, and it's fantastic that that is supported on these Blackmagic cameras. In fact, you can trigger local recording from the device too. So we were recording locally to 3 Blackmagic cameras, 2 Blackmagic Pocket 4Ks and 1 Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K, and we're recording locally as we always would onto SSDs on all 3 devices. But there's no functionality to automatically put those back together in post. In other words, the Atem doesn't export something that Resolve will understand as a master project file, and that you can then drop all the footage from the 3 cameras in and go bang, this is where they were in the stream, maybe even this is where the cuts were made in the stream, here's your high quality version. That would be a really, really nice feature, which would be kind of a more deep integration with the software offerings Blackmagic already have, that would let you do your live stream and then pretty quickly afterwards get all your footage together onto a drive and have your super high quality version that you might want to have for archive or to replace the live stream on YouTube after it's finished. Just something to consider. It's something that I think could probably be done via software. I don't think there's any hardware reason why it's impossible, but right now it's not something that you can do. So another issue that might be of concern to streamers is that this device streams to MPEG-4 using MJPEG compression. It doesn't use the more popular YUY2 uncompressed video setting. And what that means is that it gives software a full RGB gamut. That's the color space it uses. And lots of software that you might use, like the software I mentioned, like Twitch, Facebook, video, YouTube live streaming, isn't fully compatible with that, doesn't accept that kind of video. It will still work, but it will look darker and more contrasty than it does on your monitor, and you of course don't want that. Now this is something that you can solve. You can put a piece of software in the middle. OBS Studio, which is a free streaming platform I mentioned earlier, has a plugin that I will link to below, specifically for convincing other software that it's a webcam. So you can run the Atem in, take the video into OBS and convert it into that partial RGB color space and then output it as video, which of course is adding another layer of complexity, and you're at that point going to be decoding and re-encoding video, so you're going to need a more powerful laptop. So that's really important to be aware of. It's something that I think could be fixed potentially in software, and maybe have an option in the RSHM software, if not for uncompressed video, then at least to change that color space. But right now it's something that a lot of people are running into, where the video that they're getting over the stream, and you can see it in our stream, it's much darker than what we were seeing on the day. So it is something to be aware of. We were running our stream, as I mentioned, over 4G, and it's amazing that in this day and age you can now turn up to a random venue and have your phone as a hotspot, and provided you have decent internet, you can run a multi-camera studio straight from that. That is an incredible feature, and it's something that I don't know of any other device in and around this price point. That's like in Ireland it's €600 plus VAT, that can do that. That said, you don't have control over the data rate. So the Atem will tell you what data rate it's putting out. I think it went up to about 5.5 meg when we were doing it, which was very hot. It was a lot of information for our 4G to handle here deep in a building. And that might have accounted for some of the contention, some of the blocking that we were getting as we switched between cameras in the stream. So having the ability to change that compression ratio would be great, or alternately just stick to a better internet connection. Like a phone is obviously not ideal for streaming, and contention is something you're always going to run into when you don't have ensured quality of service. And you're also going to run into that in live streaming anyway. You could have brilliant broadband and your connection to YouTube might be problematic because of something further down the streaming chain. It would be great if a future version of the device could have 4G built right in, so, or even 5G. You can drop in a SIM card and let the device handle all of the streaming, which would get rid of the need for a separate phone and laptop. And further, it would mean that you could use it in places where you can't get Wi-Fi signal, and problematically you can't get a laptop in close to it or whatever. That would be a cool feature for the future. Or even just having Wi-Fi built into the device again would get rid of the need for this Ethernet port. You might be in a live event scenario where you can't reach the router, it's in a different room, or you don't have access to it because of the way the building is set up or security, but you need to stream, and right now you need that Ethernet either to a streaming dongle or to directly to the router, and having Wi-Fi built into a future version would get rid of that need. I mentioned this already, but the fact that you can't simultaneously stream over USB and also record locally to an SSD is a bit irksome. But right now, as far as we know, There's only this one USB 2 port. It'd be great if there were two. It'd be even better if there were USB 3 to allow multiple different kinds of video compression, all for the future in future Atem devices. There's no way to update live text on the device. You can't easily, without pre-creating a graphic, uploading it to the device, selecting that graphic and putting that on screen. You can't have like a live text scroll, for example, or any other kind of form of text popping up on screen and changing. This is something that maybe isn't as popular as it used to be, but certainly in a newsroom environment where you are very limited and you only have this device, it will be hugely advantageous. And also for streamers. Again, if you're running it to something like Twitch, they have all that built in. So Twitch has its own comments, its own chat platform, and it wouldn't be advantageous. But it is another thing that could be added potentially in software that would give it that little extra professionality to the device. So another thing that would greatly empower the device is if it had kind of more of those media to device features. So you could save images and video locally to the device, or stream video through the software to the device, or have multiple images set up to be triggered at different times. That kind of thing, especially without a laptop, would be incredibly powerful. And when we disconnected our laptop after the stream yesterday, the little hot lunch logo that we'd set up, the transparency, stayed actually on the device. But as soon as the device was turned off, it left memory because there is no kind of permanent ROM memory in this. Little SD card slot, little way to store some video, some pictures, and run those through the device would be incredible. That would move this from being something that merely switches between video inputs into a kind of a full-featured TV studio mixer. And again, something to be thought of maybe in the next iteration of the device. You know, I would say that this is the Atem Mini kind of medium. It's very advanced for what you might want to do at home, but very basic for what you might want to do in a pro setting. So an Atem Pro or Ultra Pro or Atem Pro Max, like the iPhones are doing now, would be like a hugely welcome device, even if it was maybe twice the cost. If it did have those local streaming features built straight into it and it had that kind of video support, that would be brilliant. What it does right now, it does very, very well, but you need to know where the limits are and whether that's what you need or not. So overall, this is an amazing streaming solution for live events. If what you're doing, let's say you have a local church or other religious organization, or you work for a local sports team, or your high school has a TV show, a TV station, or your college, even if you run conferences or you occasionally have these kind of live conference events, it's not a huge investment. And what it will do is let you do that kind of live coverage and, more importantly, that kind of local recording. So recently I set up, just as COVID was starting, I set up a local recording studio environment for a crowd in Balbriggan who have a music school. And I'll link to their stuff below as well. What I had to do for them was basically set up a recording environment where they had to then go and take the video, and they have a Blackmagic as well, and then put it aside and edit it and do this, that, and the other. It would actually be much more advantageous for people in that position where they want that quick turnaround. They want to be able to go, okay, we've got 2 people in the studio. This time we have 2 cameras. Now we have three cameras. We just run it straight into the Atem, record it locally to an SSD, bish, bash, bosh. We have that file. We can put that on our website, put it wherever. No editing required, or very minimal editing. Maybe you want to take that 1080 video and cut it. You need a way less powerful laptop than you would, using the ProRes or the B-RAW that's coming directly out of the cameras. That is super useful for that subset of people, and I think that's where it comes into its own. So any of those scenarios that I outlined or anything similar, very, very useful. It's probably not the perfect device for your traditional streamer. They're probably better investing in a higher end version of this from the Blackmagic range, or doing it via computers and their graphics cards as they do today. And that will be much more expensive. You're going to need a graphics card that has a video in, you're getting into many thousands of euro, but this is not the device for that particular setup. It could be incredibly useful in the corporate context. Let's say you have a conference room where you're regularly having people come in and you need to get all their laptops working and multiple people, and maybe there's a video in from another location. That kind of switching right now, very complicated to do, often requires large blade style server decks that are built in. This cuts out loads of that complexity, and for that kind of environment, it is an absolutely incredibly cheap device just for all those kinds of live video mixing needs. As I mentioned, the software is quite complex, and the software panel looks basically like a TV studio panel. So it literally is skeuomorphic, I think is the term, where the buttons look like buttons on a physical device and can be kind of hard to understand if you're not familiar with all the various functionality. But what that means is that you also have that more complex level of TV functionality built into the software. So the Atem Studio software that you're using with the Mini Pro is the same Atem Studio software that you're using with all the Atem range. So you can do things like macros. So you can build in complex sets of things like fade now, run this graphic now, switch to this camera, all that kind of thing to be set up automatically. If you're running a studio setup, that could be super useful, where you need to do the same thing repetitively over multiple guests and so on. That's a really, really useful device for that universe. And again, builds on that lineage of a TV device. We were talking before in our review of the FS7 and FX9 how there are two kinds of cameras really now, the ones that evolved from DSLRs and the ones that evolved from production cameras. And there are two kinds of streaming platforms. There are the ones that evolved from, I want to get my stream of Fortnite online and maybe have my camera run in while I'm doing that, and I want to run a TV studio. How can I do that cheaply? And this is very much in the latter camp. Camerakit.ie, our channel sponsors, have this device. They can order it in for you. It is wildly popular right now. So, but they can get it. They have a direct line. They're the official Blackmagic suppliers in Ireland for all their cameras, their whole range. And it's €600 for the Atem Mini Pro and €300 for the Atem Mini, which lacks the Ethernet and local storage. So it's designed to be specifically used through a laptop without that kind of streaming on its own or recording on its own capabilities. They also rent the devices. I think it's €35 a day for the Atem Mini Pro and €25 a day to rent the Atem Mini. And I would strongly recommend that you do rent them. They could be the solution that you're looking for your situation. And some of the criticisms or issues that I've pointed out might be things that you can solve very easily with a bit of time with the device, using other aspects of software and hardware on your computer if you know what you're doing. And certainly I think it's a pretty great deal for a single day, which lets, say, a videographer like myself add that streaming ability very, very simply to their run and gun setup without needing a mega high-end laptop. I work often for a company called Shootcut Grade who do that kind of live streaming in addition to shooting, and Jimmy, the owner of Shootcut Grade, has a €5,000 laptop because he had to have one that was good enough to edit, but also to stream live and be reliable. And with this device, anything that can stream a laptop will do the same thing, even my really, really old laptop. So that's a huge benefit for anyone who needs to stream reliably from an event at a reasonable cost. So thanks again for tuning in. You find links to the Atem and the various range and other things I've mentioned below. Tune in next week where we'll be taking a look at the Zeiss CP3s.
Did you make it move? Well, we never said that it was gonna be easy. And when the truth shining out, that's when you'll know you'll always have my shoulder, the rest of your head upon. You're the first one when I wake in the morning, the last one on my mind. Not like I'd ever need another warning, and it's you, babe, all the time. Well, here she comes, gonna raise my glass. Maybe I